Hi, Candice. Welcome to my podcast. You are my very first guest here, and I was so excited to connect with you because speaking of energy, which is today's episode topic, you can say that we connected through virtual energy. You are a holistic practitioner. You do master Reiki healing as well, and you do the energy work. So, for people who are new to this work, how can you best describe energy? What is energy and how can it show up?
Okay. So in my practice, I started with my Reiki Master certification, and I'm actually a root cause practitioner in training. So, what that looks like is looking at energy within the body, within the organs. I would say I am really a master in the energy centers themselves. So, the chakra system, I look at it as a roadmap to really understand what's going on in the energetic body. So, everything in our life has energy. Science can prove this. And when we think about it like that, we can really see how our food affects us, how our environments affect us, how the music that we listen to, the things that we watch, the filtration system, essentially, that we allow our bodies to go through when we're thinking of energy. Because energy, how I look at it, is how our presence shows up. So we are a combination and accumulation of all of our life experiences, and all of the things that we have gone through make up our energy. Now, it depends on if you have done inner work or not as to whether these energetic patterns will stay within your body. When I look at energy, I think of it as the vibration that it is. So we know that sound is a vibration, that is energy. We understand that we carry different energy frequencies based on our mood, based on our life experience that we're going through, and based on past experiences. So when I look at energy, I see it in this really big, expansive way. But mostly, I would say it is how you feel, how you vibrate, and how you're seen in the world.
Starting to do inner work. What do you need to know? I mean, when you talk about the chakras, is there some knowledge there that you can perhaps feel that you have stomach ache or your digestion is poor? Can that be an indicator as to here's something maybe chakra related, or is that a place to start?
Yeah, so let me do a run through of each energy center, because then I think you can kind of see yourself in this whole experience. So, as we start at the base of the spine, which is the root chakra, it is all about our safety, our security, our environment, how we feel safe and who we are, but then also how we feel safe and secure in our surrounding environment. It's very foundational. So it is how you truly interpret the world around you. And depending on the support system that you came into as a soul, meaning your family, you may have different variations of feeling safe. Again, it is all related to both the self and then our external world with each energy center. So I'll try to do my best to kind of describe both scapes of that. Then, yeah, then as you go up, you have the sacral. The sacral is the most beautifully complex energy center, I always say, because it holds so much. It's in our reproductive area, so it's right above the root. It is our creativity, our passion, our purpose, our desires, both intimacy desire and then our desire for life. It's also our emotions and our creativity. And so when this is in balance, you have this ability to creatively express yourself. You are able to really move through emotions versus hold on to them. And you have this inner knowing of what you desire is safe and secure. And it's okay to really put that out into the world. So you don't tend to procrastinate on projects, or maybe you like really follow through on the things that you have in motion, Now, this is all connected, and I'll get to it here in just a second because as each energy center connects, you can see where an imbalance might halter you or pause you in your life. So, as we get into the solar plexus, which is the middle of the belly, or like right at the like underneath the sternum, that is our seat of power. So it is knowing that I am who I am because I am who I am, not any label, or I don't have to be anything outside of myself. It's just having this concrete knowing of who you are. It's where our confidence lives, it's where we shine our light into the world. And it is really about just that divine understanding of who we are as an essence. And so, as you feel safe to know what you're here to do and you really step into it, you can see that you just kind of embody more and more of who you are. So, it makes it so much easier to show up in the world as the person you are versus feeling like you have to hold a mask of any kind. It's not to say that we don't struggle here and there. That's normal. We're human, spiritual beings living in a human experience. But you can just see how having these foundational layers help you bridge even further into your life and then your spiritual experience. So the heart is the next energy center, and it connects both the lower three energy centers and the upper three. I like to say it is the way that we stay grounded in the human experience, but then consciously connect with the higher consciousness that is. With the heart, it is our conscious connection to one another. It's our compassion and love for both the self and others. When it's in balance, you create really reciprocal relationships in your life. So it's much easier to accept and receive love and abundance in the highest forms and to give it in the same note. That is also where we can hold on to grief. Grief is held in the lungs, but it is also in the shoulders and the upper body. And that's all connected with the heart. When this is in balance, you really have and hold compassion, love, and desire for yourself. And therefore, you can then emanate that into the world. As we continue, we get to the throat. The throat is our communication. So it's how we interpret communication. So, how we take that in, how we process and then speak our authenticity and our truth. It allows us the space to really come from a place of non wounded communication when it's in balance. So we're not as reactive in our communication. We kind of take a moment to take things in and then we might formulate what we want to say. But it's also, again, if you're really rooted in who you are, you can then communicate in a way that is captivating and instead of harmful if you're talking about a sensitive subject, or you can have better communication in your relationships because, again, it all comes back to caring and wanting to have and hold that compassion for yourself. You kind of see I'm going to relayer that every single time because the inner work is truly what transforms our life. It's the smallest word for that because it really changes everything. So now the third eye is both our physical vision, but then our vision for life. So this also means seeing yourself in the vision, actualizing the vision, and following through on the vision. It's also our intuitive understanding, so that divine layer of trust within ourselves to make the decisions. If, again, all of this is in balance, you can see how easily it becomes to do the things that you know you're here to do and that you're passionate about with greater clarity. You're able to really see things in a bigger perspective and view. And again, you're seeing yourself in this. So you don't feel that insecurity or lower confidence. Now, this isn't to say you might not have moments of imposter syndrome when you're in a growth period or go through different variations of challenge within this because we're always learning. But it becomes a filtration system, is what I would say, to where we're kind of recalibrating, tuning in, checking in, saying, okay, is this the next step for me or not? And then you trust that. You don't even second guess it. As we hit the crown, that is our conscious connection to the divine in all of us. It's also our higher self connection. And it really, again, bridges our understanding of the world around us and within us. And I like to say divine because that's what I most resonate with, but you can call this God, universe, higher consciousness. And you can kind of see how all of this really filters in to create who you are as the essence of who you are, which is really unique because there's only one you. You've gone through an, again, a lifetime of experiences, multiple lifetimes, if you believe in that. And so, again, it all kind of bridges together to create the energy of who you are.
It's just so fascinating. And you describe it so well. Then you talked about your grandmother's womb. Has that got
Yes.
something to do with past souls' lives, or how do you describe that?
Yeah. So in my sessions, I always start with this embodiment, right? So I start helping people work through this layer of experience, and then we can get into past lives or even generational healing. So when we're looking at ourselves, we are actually being developed, and science has proven this, that we are being developed in our grandmother's womb as our mother is being like born, basically. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
say it. But so we are taking in everything that our grandmother is experiencing, every emotion, every like external thing that she is going through, internal processing as well. So we're gathering that data, in other words. Then when we come into our mother's womb, we're then taking in her whole external world and internal environment because we're so close with her. And when we're looking at doing generational healing, it's important to understand you might not have all of the information about what your grandparents went through, what your mother went through, what their, family went through, but you can start to see where you might be carrying the weight of someone else. Now, we don't start there because if we do, then we're more apt to like put things over here instead of owning our part in our life because there are things that are literally just out of our control that we are like, I can't explain why I have this weird fear, phobia, or whatnot. And it can go back so many generations. There's a book called It Didn't Start With You. And he goes into, I don't remember the author off the top of my head, but he goes into all of this because when we're looking at generational work, we can really see the patterns and cycles that we're playing out based on that. Now, I will say there was a scientific experiment where they took mice and they put cherry blossom scent on their food. The first generation, they would zap them, so shock them, and they would measure the physical body reaction that the mice had. Now, the next 4 generations, they did not actually electrocute them, but their physical body reacted the same just from the scent alone. So they were proving that this like physically does get transferred down. And so that's another way to look at it is like we truly do carry some things that are again outside of us. And we do also carry those things that we experience at the same time. So that's why I encourage people to start in this embodiment so that you can really filter through and make that process easier for you because, we I will say, like, it's not always the fun work to look at ourselves, and that can be the challenge at times, but it is truly where you identify and move through instead of suppress and hold on. Which, to add to your earlier question, yes, there are various physical symptoms that become a manifestation of non processing. So, what I encourage clients to do is when they're experiencing something that is like tightness in the chest, or you constantly have digestive issues, a lot of autoimmune diseases come from suppression and not knowing who you are. So that would be part of it too. And so again, like you kind of start to see where everything comes together as you're looking at the bigger picture.
That is really interesting. I've looked into a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, and I'm not quite sure if the number is 90 or 95% of the things that you feel or have in your body is actually self-created. In some way, there's a way to start to take some responsibility for that. People know there's something here that's off. They feel the energy is off, or they're just sick and tired of being sick, perhaps. Where do you start? If you just have the awareness and the curiosity, you've heard some of this and think, okay, I know there's something off. Where do I start? You have a little knowledge around the chakras. What is it you can do to start working on this inner work?
I would say, like, don't be afraid to find the right practitioner to work with because in the beginning, energy work is the support system for us to do this work. So, as a practitioner, I'm holding space, which means before we even get on the call, I am energetically setting that space with divine intention. So, what needs to come through for you in this session? How can we best support your highest good? And just the energy of coming into the space. And so that's why a lot of people come in and they might instantly cry and they don't know why. They're like, oh my gosh, I feel so safe, is what they tend to say in the long run, but they don't necessarily recognize it at first. So I would say and encourage, like, starting with a practitioner will really help you identify where you're starting. Now, let's say you might not be quite ready to work with a practitioner, then you can start by getting familiar with your body. So, a lot of us live very disconnected from our physical body. And so, how we practice getting in tune with our body is by slowing down long enough to do so, which doesn't mean I always joke and be like, you don't have to go meditate on a mountain for 12 days to see this, improvement in your life. You can take 2 to 5 minutes to just tune in and ask, what is my body physically saying today? What do I physically need today? What do I emotionally need, spiritually need, etc.? And you might not have the answer the first few times, and that's okay. It's about bringing awareness. I always believe that this is my 3 pillars, is that awareness brings clarity to take aligned action. Because without those pillars, we can't fully step into what is next or even what is now. So, starting by, at least tuning into the body to feel where you might be holding energy is a great starting point. Usually, I see clients that are brand new to this work, and it's really exciting because I love educating clients. I have a few that are not quite so new, but it's usually like people who are brand new or maybe have had a session or two. And then I also work with practitioners who are in business. So knowing that so many people are new to this, it's really easy to kind of ease you into that process. And I always feel like the aligned practitioner for you will provide that.
Sure, there's something really important about finding that person that you feel completely safe with. So I'm wondering, when you're new to this work and you are going into yourself, you're going on the inside and being still for 2 to 5 minutes, and what you come across is impatience. Maybe it doesn't feel very well. Your mind wanders off doing the grocery list, and it doesn't feel like you are meant to do that because you're distracted. And even sitting still and finding the time is something that can seem like an obstacle. Do you have good advice for getting into that inner 2 to 5 minute work?
Yeah, as you can see, I'm like smiling because it's a common factor for most people. And I like to describe it as like running. When you're running, your heart is beating really fast, it's adapting to what your movement is. Then when you stop, your heart doesn't just instantly slow down. It takes time to gradually come back down. You could be even just walking fast, going up a hill, whatever it is to help you think about it. But the bigger thing is noticing that you don't just stop dead set and your heart rate goes down. Same thing with our minds. We don't live in a place where most of us don't anyway, where we are like consciously slowing down. So being aware that it will take a few times of stillness to become comfortable with it because we live in a world where fast and movement aren't always. So the more that we allow ourselves the time to just ease into it, the easier it will become.
It's been so common to you have to perform, and I think especially for females. It's something that you have to all the time push and perform and create something in the world, whether that's you need the good health and the beautiful family and you need to have a great job. So the being comfortable in not doing, that has also got to do with energy, right? I mean, the female versus
Mhm.
the masculine energy. And can you speak a little into that?
Yeah, and what came to mind and what was coming through is the performance. So we base and measure ourselves so often. And with stillness, it's kind of the opposite. You're trying not to do that, which is a challenge all on its own. You've been conditioned to measure, to think, okay, am I doing this perfectly? The divine masculine and divine feminine both serve a really beautiful purpose. And we are coming back into understanding what the divine feminine looks like, in that both men and women carry it. It's not like singular for, individualized there. But, we're really coming back into that remembrance that it's okay to be soft. It's okay to share a little bit of vulnerability with those that are close to you. It's okay to share our realness, and so that is the difference in feeling like everything has to be structured, which is the masculine. And, the feminine is more the creative or the flow aspect. Now, what we don't realize is that the divine feminine is also very, very powerful. So it's not just this light and fluffy all the time. We're literally like embodying this energy of power and desire and passion. So again, you think of that sacral energy of like, I am so passionate about what I want to do in this world or what I'm doing currently or who I'm connected with. That is the divine feminine. The divine masculine really helps us optimize our flow. So they both interconnect and integrate in such a beautiful way. And we often have been taught to over operate in systems and structures. I mean, even the retreat that I hosted over this weekend, I had a structure in place, so an agenda, but then I was really having to be more fluid and understand what the needs of the group were over what I had set into place. Now, I could only do that because I was sitting in meditation leading up to the retreat so that I would be a good vessel for that. But if I had been so structured and rigid, I might have missed the opportunity for that fluid interaction that was created instead. So it goes back to really understanding who we are and what aspects of that energy we need to be utilizing. Because again, they both serve a purpose and we need them both. And sometimes one's just more familiar than the other. So I think in all of this work, it's not about shaming or blaming or feeling like, oh gosh, I have to change everything, because you might really operate well with a little bit more structure. That doesn't mean that you don't have the feminine energy of flow. It just means that your energy optimizes better and serves better when it has a little bit more structure. So it's like, how can you then allow yourself the flexibility when you need it and in those circumstances, right?
Beautiful example. I think totally relatable. And a word that came to my mind was space,
Mm.
creating that space for oneself to say, okay, I don't need to do anything hasty. Just stop and feel, create space, and then see whether you need to go left or right in the feminine or masculine to try and get more balance, creating more space for oneself. Is that something you see in your work that people are struggling with? Creating
Yeah, so I work with a lot of both female and males, but I would say most often I'm working with individuals who tend to be entrepreneurs or high performers. And so they're really driven and they usually have a super overloaded plate, especially if they're a solopreneur or somebody that's higher level executive. And they just have so much going on. They also have family obligations. And so they're struggling to find balance in their life. There isn't ever really a full on balance. It's about piecing it all together and allowing it to fall into place as best as possible, because sometimes you'll need to give more over here than you do over here. And it's about letting go of the shame and guilt that we often feel when we're having to, try to create that balance in our lives. A lot of times I see people struggling to give themselves grace to see that they're heading into burnout, they're already living it potentially, and that in creating a little bit of space for themselves, they'll actually create more time for the rest of their calendar. A lot of people are like, oh, but like if I block off, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, that's so much time. I have so much to do. And it's like, yes. But when you clear the energy that's like really stagnating your life, you then quit filling the calendar with things that aren't aligned. So you're able to set better boundaries. You're able to stop procrastinating and overthinking because your energy's more aligned. So it's like you have this, I call it a recalibration system within versus feeling like you're just on autopilot or go, go, go. And so it's again like we create a lot of extra chaos in our life because we're not aligned. So this is where we overload the schedule or we tend to go from moment to moment. And it's because we're not trying to look at our inner world. COVID was a really big example of this in that it unsettled our energy on a global level because so many people had never been in stillness for that long of a period of time. Then you add in the heightened energy of everything. One of the biggest shifts that we notice is that, oh, I don't know what to do with this extra space because I've never had it. And what does it look like going forward? For me, that's in a healthy way. And so to go back to what you were saying is absolutely, I see people struggle with this more often just because it's unfamiliar and foreign. And that in itself can just feel overwhelming sometimes in the beginning. But then it's like they see the results that happen as a byproduct of doing the work. And they're like, man, I wish I could have found this sooner. I have a client who's in her 70s who came to me for autoimmune disorders. So she's had them her whole life, like since her late 20s. And to see the shifts that she's been able to make, because we've been able to work on her life experiences, but then the generational patterning, and to see her vibrancy come back, to see her body start to heal. The doctor came back with results where, she can see these improvements in the science way. And so it just keeps confirming that she's like feeling better. And again, her color from day like the first session to now is so vibrant. Like she feels so much better. And that's what she keeps saying. She's like, gosh, I just wish I had known about this so much sooner. The same thing with the clients that are operating a business. Like they're usually so busy and they're feeling the weight of everything. And in clearing a little bit of the energetic, the ways that we hold ourselves back, even in business, and aligning with their energy of their business, they're really able to see the pathway forward finally, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I actually am taking action in a way that feels aligned and authentic. I don't hesitate. I don't feel like I'm having to rush into things anymore." And again, it's a process. It's not like it's overnight, but, as a practitioner, I'm really trying to help guide them and allow them to take these practices further.
So that is so beautiful, that story with her changing her whole appearance. It seems like the energy just pouring out of her in a completely different way.
Mhm.
When you have people coming in, if you're a listener to this podcast and you're thinking, okay, I am right there in the doorway into inner work, and I know I have to sit still and do some breath work. That's number one. What could it look like for a
Mm.
client standing there in the doorway, still overwhelmed? Where do you start?
That's when I would encourage finding a practitioner. And I say that because, we're guides. So we're here to support you kind of filter through what it looks like to get started. And a supportive practitioner will do so in a matter of sessions. Like most of my clients see me 6 or 7 consecutive sessions, and then we might check in monthly from there in the beginning that first year because, we're moving through, not to make it feel overwhelming, but we're moving through the things that you're ready for. And it might look different in a different season because it depends on where you're starting. A lot of clients start with the inner work and then they're like, okay, now I have so much clarity on who I am. I'm ready to really amplify the work that I'm doing in my career or my business or my family. And so we take that section of life. And so I would say if you're curious and you know that you're just called into doing some inner work, it might be intimidating. Well, it was very taboo, years ago. Same thing with energy work. We're still kind of figuring out how comfortable we are with it. But more and more people are coming to it because they're intuitively guided to it. And so there's like a reason why you're listening to this today or listening to it down the line because you were guided to it. And so just kind of finding again that aligned person that will help you walk through these experiences will really help you have a good starting place so that you feel comfortable to do it at the pace that you're ready to. So that's what I would say too. But let's just say you're just still not quite ready. Start diving into understanding yourself, meaning give yourself a moment to just check in and say, where am I? How am I actually feeling? What is it that I want to be doing differently in my life? Let me just back up. Like when we do energy work, we're not only affecting ourselves, we're affecting everyone that we care about. So they can feel that energetic shift. Polyvagal theory actually shows us that we resonate at the same energy frequency from the nervous system of others around us. That's why being in the presence of some people can really calm and soothe us. And some people, we instantly start feeling anxiety. Not only are we intuitively picking up on that, but we're also physically resonating at the same vibration. And it really depends on who is, I would say, more grounded in their experience as to which direction that goes. I know that when people are around me, I feel their energy kind of calm down a little bit. Then they always say this. They're like, oh my gosh, I just need to be around you every day. Just kind of having that situational and internal awareness is a great starting place. And again, that's why energy work is so supportive. And there's other forms of energy work. So there's sound healing. I do energy healing, dance, creative expression. You have to find what most resonates for you in the season that you're in. And this can change and evolve as you deepen your practice. You kind of come in and out of different things that work really well because we're meant to experience the full embodiment of this human experience. And I'm learning so many beautiful things about the creative arts. So let's say you're not somebody who likes to talk a lot, or you haven't found your voice and the ability to be vulnerable. Creative expression is when you work with people who do that type of work, it takes the sacral energy of emotion and creativity and it combines them in a way that helps you almost channel the energy or pull the energy out of the body. And then movement is also a really great way to, take the energy that is within you and process it. Because that's what we're doing at the core level of any of this inner work is processing because again, we're holding on to everything. The Body Keeps the Score is a great book. I will caution and say that it does talk about traumas and trauma like big T, little t. And so you have to really be in a certain place, I would say, not everyone, but to take in that information because some of it's really heavy. So just cautionary there. But it does talk about and dictate how we truly hold on to our experiences and we physically hold on to them in the body. Joe Dispenza is really great about talking about the mindset and how our thoughts affect what we manifest into being and how we physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so there's, again, so many different modalities available, and you just have to find what aligns the most for you in the season that you're in.
When you think about inner work, you will come across words as trauma and healing. It's heavy stuff and you're going to cry and it's going to be really hard. And if you are feeling overwhelmed to begin with, that can be a little hard to go through the trauma and healing to
Mhm.
get on the other side. How would you say that mindset could be different? Can we not make it so heavy?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's coming to through to share, it's always challenging in the beginning of anything new So keeping that in mind, it's a practice that you show up for. It's something that gets much easier over time. And again, with the right modality, the right practitioner, you should feel comfort and ease as you're going through this. A lot of times we think about the traumas because they're still physically living in our body. Even thinking about doing something that would reactivate that can feel overwhelming. But the goal isn't to reactivate trauma, it's actually to support the energetic body as you move through the experience that you're going through. And it doesn't always come up in the first sessions. A lot of times people are really just trying to figure out who they are. And in that processing, they will then remember these different experiences that are creating self doubt or creating disconnection. And so I wouldn't say that you're usually walking into even your past trauma. You might be, depending on what you're specifically coming in for. But I would say the majority of people are really seeking to find themselves. And in that process, they finally feel comfort to walk through those experiences. And processing, crying, feeling emotion is really healthy because there's not good or bad energy that I feel. I think it's the actions that we take that make it such. So we can be angry and we can process it and we can take it and create something better, or we can process it and create something that's destructive. All emotions serve a purpose. They're a signal. They're a way that we know that something's out of alignment or needs attention. And so the more and more we lean in to discover where is it originating. And a practice that you can do at any time is when you're experiencing something, asking where does it originate. You can start with the body, or you can start by closing your eyes and thinking, okay, where is this coming from in my life? Like, where is this originating? Because most of the time when we are triggered or going through something or processing, it usually has an originating point. And so just finding that and seeing things from a different perspective for the very first time. And I will say that I work with people who are in a certain place in their journey. And there's a very specific reason for that, because you do have to be at a certain place of ready to move through life experiences. And the people that are in therapy for different things, this is just an added layer of that support. But I think if you're feeling overwhelmed or thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna have a bunch of crying sessions," and I mean, you could be crying. Like that's an expression, right? It's just an expression of emotion that has been held within the body. Water is emotion. So when you're cleansing yourself, submersing in water, it's literally like emotional. And so just knowing that it's not always that. And the cool part is once you get to a certain place, you become more naturally inquisitive. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better that every time I do this, like I feel lighter. I can actually go and do my day and I don't feel this physical heaviness anymore. And so you kind of think about it like a deep tissue massage. Once you do it, you might be sore for a couple of days, but then you feel like butter, right? You're just like, "Oh my gosh." Or maybe you feel like butter and then it's, a little rough, but either way, that's what the body physically feels like when you do this work, and so it gets easier to want to do it.
Is that also your sign that you are releasing, or you can say done with that trauma or that blockage? Do you know
Yeah.
that when it gets easier, that's kind of the sign that you are moving past it and then you can go to the next?
Yeah, so what happens is we work through our experiences in layers anyway. And sometimes it looks like coming back to the same thing and being just seeing another aspect of it. And that's why the healing journey is just a process that we undergo. It doesn't mean that you're always doing specifically energy work, right? Or any other modality. It just might be that you think of something and it comes through in a much easier way versus before, where it might shut you down completely. So I would say the sign that you're moving forward is you start feeling like less intimidated by looking at things and more excited to see what's possible. The bigger signs are you're physically just feeling so much better. And I don't know how else to describe it other than you just You kind of move through your day differently. When you do work like this, you start to see the things that don't serve a purpose, and that's its own set of challenges in a good way because it's like, oh, I might need to work on this relationship in particular because it's not fully serving me, but it doesn't mean it needs to go away. You start recognizing the world around you, meaning how most people are not kind to themselves. And so that's why we see the world that we see is like we have to be kind to ourselves first. You kind of start observing the world around you in a different way. You experience life with a greater depth. So you might be on vacation and instead of like feeling like you need to check your phone or your email or whatever, you're actually able to put it aside and just simply be present. So there's different indicators that you're moving through the layers of your experience in that you're really developing that continuation of the work in everyday application.
So, for instance, the event that we attended, Candice, on the second day for me, I was in the theater and we were like 460 people there and 1,000 plus on live streams. You could really feel physically the energy, and not only one's own energy, but the others. I got super nauseous at some point and almost had a feeling of I have to throw up. Then I moved away and sat by myself, and then it went away. Is that really what you speak about, reacting to other people's nervous system? How do you manage going to family dinners or stuff like that where you feel that your whole system is overrun by something that might not be yours? And when you pick up everything and you feel heavy or exhausted, how can we create better space there? What practice can we do, or should we just not go?
No, so it's really great to be in the company of others. I will, especially if you're in the company of people that are moving through energy and doing that kind of work. Now, as people who are very sensitive to the energy of others, it's just really important to create boundaries within yourself. So, one of the things that I learned as a practitioner is that I didn't have to pick up on the energy of others. Like, that was something that I believed is like, "Oh, I have to constantly be tuning in, checking in, all the things." And actually, it's intrusive if you do that. And I don't know why that was, like, the permission I needed to be like, "Cool, I don't have to do this, great." And so I was able to kind of set that energetic space and boundary. Now, sometimes, again, this means you root in and you ground in before you go to an event. So maybe setting your feet in the grass for a few minutes. If it's the winter, like just envisioning that your feet are on the soil, giving yourself the space to truly connect in with the earth and allow the energy exchange there, because what that does is it recalibrates the energy. So it grounds you versus feeling so up in the spiritual world and flighty. You can do things like that. You can truly allow your body to physically separate from those around you. And if it's your first time being at an experience like that, that's very normal to be picking up on so much. So I would say after an event like that, doing a thorough auric cleansing. So you can use selenite, which is a crystal that is all about cleansing energy. You can do an aura brushing where you're physically just brushing the body. You don't have to have a crystal. You can do it with your hands and just intention. So just asking for the divine energy to allow any energy that is not yours to go back to the originator in love and light, and just be thankful to say, okay, I'm good. I'm dusting off, basically like taking a shower. You can actually physically take a shower. Water is very cleansing for our energy field. I don't like to say that we're always protecting our energy. I feel like that just invites us to think that we're not safe, but everybody has their different interpretation. What I like to think is that we just really kind of set energetic boundaries for what we're willing to support and how we're willing to support. And sometimes you will have to kind of let the guard down, so to speak, to be in conversation with people, but you still don't need to absorb. And it's very much an intention that you have to place and in practice that you go over and over and over through. Because a lot of the intuitive work that we do is a practice and a skill just like everything else. Like we didn't get on a bike one day and be like, cool, I'm no training wheels, I'm just going. Same thing with all of this. If you fall down, if you get overwhelmed or whatever, just reset and move back through and learn and say, okay, what did I learn from this experience and what could I have maybe shifted? So that way you're just constantly in that awareness, I would say, and paying attention. The point isn't to pick apart who you are, it's really just to pay attention a little bit better.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. Observing more than being reactive also can be a sentence that fits the frame here. Stop reacting and be just observant. So, if you are struggling in a sentence with being sensitive and being too overreactive because you're not all the way there doing the inner work or just starting to do it, what can you do?
I can say that a practice that you can do for inner awareness, I think is super helpful. So, the more and more we tune into the energy of our body, the easier it is to know when it's out of alignment, right? The sooner that we can connect within, the easier it is to know when things are out of alignment. And a practice that I actually walked a whole bunch of medical physicians through because they're super busy, they're very disconnected. So, one of the things I taught them is how to actually work with your energy. So, if you can find, and you can do this in 90 seconds. So, let's say that you're out in public and you need to just go to a location to reset, right? So, off to a corner or in a bathroom stall really doesn't matter because you're literally like allowing your body to tune in. So, what you can do is take your hands and put them probably like, hand width apart and just close your eyes as you start to tune into the energetic flow between your hands. You'll start to feel warmth, maybe even cooling. You can kind of think of it like an injury. Sometimes we need heat, sometimes we need cooling. And just sit with that for a moment and just really allow the energy exchange to happen. And as you're doing this, you just kind of start to envision as if the sun were coming straight through your body centers, just going all the way straight through like your spine. And then as it comes down, it goes through your feet into the earth. And as you feel the earth beneath you, you start to feel the energy and the roots and the support and all the goodness that the earth, not the earth that we think of, but the earth, the physical Mother Earth herself. And you start to lean into this support as you're just continuing to grow further and further roots all the way to the energy center of the earth. And as you're drawing that energy back up into the body, you're just in gratitude and thankful that you are so supported in this moment. And you allow the energy to flow straight up through the body again, exiting the crown as it just continues to filter through and cycle over and over again, going back through the body into the earth, paying attention to your breath as you just slowly start to let things settle. And during this process, if you're going through trying to release other energy, just allow the energy and the support of the divine and the earth to really hold you, to just encapsulate your entire body. And as you just continue to cycle through over and over, you just continue to recognize how supported you are, how loved you are, and how clear your energy is becoming. And then I invite you to take your hands from the connection to one another to right inward on the heart space and to just hold that energy flow as it keeps going. Continuing to pay attention to the breath and allowing the body to just settle into the very moment that you're in. And when you feel that moment of relaxation, you can slowly start to open your eyes and come back into this moment. and feel the release of all that is. How do you feel?
I feel very good and very light. You have a very good voice. I mean, it's really obvious that you have done it and you really hold and facilitate this so good in such short time with so much power. Thank you for that. That was really beautiful and quick. It's quick. You can shift.
Thank you for that reflection. I appreciate that. And it took me a lot of practice, coming back into that, knowing that we are supported. And the cool thing is, we can do these different practices in such a short period of time. Some of the work that I do is I help educate people on how to tune into the energy of the body. And then how do we tune into our intuition? How do we develop that intuitive understanding that really helps us recalibrate more often? And again, it's not that I live in this perfect bubble. I go through life experiences just like anybody else. I just have the tools to process it as it's happening versus before. I think it's important to share that 10 years ago, I didn't value who I am. I didn't love who I am. I didn't even want to be here anymore. And so I want to share that because sometimes we do get to that low place, but we can come back into remembering our divine being. It's got to start with the being of who we are, and then stretch back into and filter into the love and support and compassion that is available for us. Most of the people I work with have been so hyper independent, and that it's really hard to trust and open to support. If authority in any form of your life failed you in the past, it's really hard to trust. We, as a general, believe that there is a higher source, right? And it's a new concept for me to be like, oh, it's within us. Like we're all just it. It's really hard to build that trust in something when we haven't had it before. And so I encourage you to just take a step back and think about that. Like if you're somebody who's had to really do things for yourself over and over and over again, sometimes softening can feel really vulnerable. It can feel really uneasy. And I just invite you to feel into that love and support that is available, because I didn't even know it was available until I started doing this work. And I was like, oh my gosh, where's this been my entire life? I was literally in tears one day, just like, I want the world to know this. I want them to experience this because it truly would change our lives.
What comes up when you say that for me is I did for many years pushing with a lot of masculine energy because I should support myself. I don't need anybody else. Nobody can take care of me but me. And then you kind of lack the feminine flow of being. And actually, this practice just kind of take that pressure off, saying, well, you don't need to support yourself as the only person because you are supported, you are held, you are whole. Mother Earth is here, the sun. I mean, the way you connect that just makes you a little bit of something greater, the divine, the source, God, whatever you want to call it. That is what you kind of get with a practice like this, that you don't have to do anything by yourself. You don't have to push. You are already whole.
Well, and again, it's unlearning the conditioning that we've been living with. And, when you have had to do it all on your own, it's sometimes just a forgotten aspect of our life because so many of us live very disconnected. And I call it divine remembrance because it feels like this divine remembrance or awakening. A lot of people call it awakening, but it's this connection of love that I can't fully describe in words. Like, love is a very small word to describe what this feeling is. It's just this serenity and peace that flows through you as you're remembering. And again, it doesn't mean that there's just this magic wand and you're just like, woohoo, I am on cloud nine every single day, full bliss. It actually just means that you get to embody this experience again. You get to see things differently and you get to choose to walk the path a little bit lighter. And so when anything happens, and it's not that I'm saying you're going to call in all the things happening, it's more of just when it does, then you have the ability to move through it instead of allow it to have you crumble. And sometimes doing this work, you will have moments of crumbling, moments of coming apart, but things have to fade apart or pull apart to come back together. And it's built differently. I always give this analogy like when we plant a garden, there are so many steps that goes into the preparation mode, and I am not your gardener, so for those that garden, please help me here. Essentially, you have to prep the soil, nourish the soil, move it, and then you get to plant and water and do all the things. Even with all of that preparation, as you're planting seeds, and they can be the same seed, it will grow differently based on different circumstances within that same soil. That's why we harvest things at different times. The beauty in the process of that is always evolving, always changing, because then you learn, okay, if I plant it this way, it grows differently. Or if I do it this way, this plant grows really well next to this one. It's all a practice that you come into, and just knowing that it all comes into place as it's meant to be.
And I'm thinking also conditioning, right? So if you plant out in the open with a lot of wind, that's not optimal for many plants. So you have to get a bit more shelter, a bit more fertilizer, a bit more sun. And that is the same for a human being, right? We
Mhm.
need to nourish so we don't like a leaf in the wind all the time.
Oh, that's such a good element of addition. I really appreciate that because I think we don't even think about that. Like, what is it that
Mm.
we are going to need structurally that will help us or practice wise, knowing that it's okay when we need that extra support?
Candice, I really appreciate you. And I love the way that we connected, and it was just meant to be. And you have so much knowledge that you give out on your social media. When can people find you if they want to connect with you and know more about this work?
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn and Instagram. On Instagram, it's Candice_Elizabeth.co. My name is Candice. And you can basically Google me. I'm everywhere. I'm a practitioner on heal.me, which is where you can actually see all of my client reviews and different offerings.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Candice. I appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity.